Blah.
Are you all ready to talk about vampires?
Ready to talk about the blood.
Blah. Blah, darling. Blah. I'm ready to talk about Mark Hamill.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to talk about Jackie Daytona.
Jackie Daytona. Oh, my God.
I'm ready to talk about mailer demons.
Don't sing if you want to live long. They have no use for your song. You're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead and out of this world.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. I am your host, the Salty Nerd, and today's episode, we're going to be talking all about What We Do in the Shadows Season 2. Before we get into that, I'd like to remind everybody that you guys can join our Patreon club. Go to saltynerdclub.com.
I'd like myself to introduce myself.
Please allow myself to introduce myself. Go to saltynerdclub.com. You can check out our Patreon page. We get exclusive podcasts there. We get exclusive contents. You guys can get stickers, whatever else you want. Help support the podcast. Throw us a little bit of cheddar, whether it's $1, $5, $10, whatever it is. Help us out. Our ultimate goal is to do what, Matthew Kadish?
Get 1,000 patrons helping to support the show.
That's right. And if we could all do this full time, that would be freaking fantastic because I love talking with you guys about movies.
Yeah, we'll get you a lot more content if we were doing it full time.
Absolutely. Like live streams and like video game stuff, all kinds of nerdy stuff.
I could do this 40 hours a week.
Swag.
I could do this 100% of the time. Anyway, all right, What We Do in the Shadows. Before we get started, Matthew Kadish, my author extraordinaire, welcome to the show, man.
Blah.
Blah. Juju, the ambassador of estrogen.
Blood.
Blood. And the barbarian.
Sweet Cheeks himself.
Sweet Cheeks himself.
Smooth rider.
What's up, bro?
Nerd! No, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm ready to talk about this show. All right, we're talking about What We Do in the Shadows,
Spoilers.
Season 2.
Wait,
Heavy spoilers for this show. If you haven't watched the whole thing yet, go watch it, then come back and listen to this podcast.
And everybody's been drinking, so we're probably going to swear a lot too.
I got one question.
What's up?
Was there a troll in this?
There
Yes.
was.
Yeah, man.
Full-size troll.
There was.
Yeah.
Full-blown troll.
I thought I was
With a
losing my
dong.
mind. I thought I was losing my mind.
It was,
Yeah.
it was an internet
It was a
troll.
swinger, right?
and it was pixelated out.
Yeah, it was.
We'll get to that.
Once it turned to stone, though, they let you see it. It was it's like, Jesus.
We'll get to that, I guess, right?
Yeah, we'll get to there.
We're going to go episode by episode.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Just to keep ourselves structured, we're going to go episode by episode.
Well, let's get cracking.
All right,
This will
buddy.
take 6 hours to get through.
Episode 1. What,
Season
Matthew,
2, episode 1.
Matthew Kadish, what is this episode about?
So this episode was called Resurrection, and it takes place, it kind of carries on from the revelation that Guillermo is a descendant of Van Helsing, and he's a natural vampire slayer. And so after the events of season 1, where the ancient vampire died, and the vampire council has kind of marked these guys as troublemakers, they keep sending vampire assassins after our little band of vampires, and Guillermo keeps like killing them
like easily.
yeah, to protect them.
A lot of the time, accidentally.
Yeah. But, Laszlo and Nadia and all these guys, like they're just completely oblivious to the fact that they've been targeted for death. And so Guillermo's like all stressed out because he keeps killing these like
Guillermo,
vampires.
he keeps them in such this like protective little bubble. They have no idea what's
Yeah.
going on outside their house. And
He's a good henchman.
He's great. He's a fantastic
Familiar.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in this episode, Nadia and Laszlo have a new familiar played by the kid who was in The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Now all grown up.
People.
Yeah.
He's all fat.
Yeah. And basically he dies. And they liked him so much, though, that they take him to a necromancer and have the necromancer resurrect him.
Dude, it was so jacked because he was like a terrible
He
familiar.
was awful.
So lazy.
He was just tweeting the whole time.
but he took all the shine away from Gil.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I'm like, man. And then he ends up. How did he die? Do you guys remember? Jude, do you remember?
I don't remember.
Matt Vader?
Oh, doesn't he get into a fight with Guillermo?
No, he fell into a like their little koi pond out in the yard that had like
Oh, and he got electrocuted.
Yeah,
it had an
that's
electrical
right.
spark.
Yeah.
And so basically Guillermo kind of resented him because like he was getting all this praise from the vampires, but he wasn't really doing anything. Like he only looked like he did stuff when they were around. But
He
then, like,
stole the duster brush from Guillermo in that one scene, and they're like, "Look how hard he's working, Guillermo. You need to take lessons from him." He's like, "Son of a bitch."
they don't even call him Guillermo; they call him Gizmo.
Gizmo.
They don't know his name. So they take him to this necromancer, and the necromancer resurrects him, but he does it wrong.
Yeah.
And so
Well, he turns him into a zombie.
yeah, so he comes back as like a feral zombie.
Yeah.
And so they bring him back to the house, and he's basically like climbing on the walls, and he's like attacking people.
He's just like hiding in corners.
So good.
Guillermo's like, guys, I think there's something wrong with him. It kind of, and then, what is
And they're
the,
like, Gizmo, you've never liked him.
what is the,
He's defective.
what's the girl's vampire's name?
Nadia.
Nadia.
Nadia?
Nadia.
Nadia?
Yeah.
She's like, why does this smell like dead flesh in here? She blames Guillermo. He's like, you do not keep this place clean enough. Like, man, he gets shit on so much in
I
this
know,
season. It's
poor
hilarious.
Guillermo.
I
What
feel
sucks
so
about
bad for him.
I feel bad for Guillermo because he's basically the familiar for all three of them.
Yeah, basically.
You know, and he's really only belongs to
Nandor.
Nandor. Yeah. So
Like, he's pulling double duty.
yeah,
But it was
He
just,
only calls Nandor master, though, I think.
yeah.
yeah. I think that he just gets shit from the other ones,
Yeah.
though. You guys have any favorite moments from this episode?
Just everything about this episode was hilarious.
I found myself laughing pretty hard with the ritual that the necromancer would go through.
Yeah, that was good. And he keeps trying to sell them like keychains and stuff like that.
Oh, look at the little license plate with our names on there.
There was one
It's
scene
very cool.
he looks at the camera and he goes, "This would be a perfect gift for somebody named Steve." Fucking died, dude. It's so funny.
Because basically the necromancer has like a gift shop in the middle of the park, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those like weird like oddity shops.
Yeah.
And him and Laszlo have like a
A
big
history behind right?
Laszlo has a history with everyone, it seems. but he's always like, I hate necromancers because they keep trying to sell you like stuff.
Like upsell you.
Yeah, upsell you.
I think my favorite part from this episode was once he had already become a zombie. The new familiar came in and became a zombie, and they were like, he was fighting with Guillermo, and Guillermo like accidentally ripped his arm off.
Yeah.
And then he started hitting him with the arm, and he's like, "Would you freaking stop?" And he pushes him down the stairs, and he's like, "Oh man, I think he's dead." And then he gets back up, and
Yeah, he can't die.
No, he can't die. There's nothing you could do could kill him. And it's just that whole little hijinksy fight scene.
And like it basically turns out that the necromancer was running a scheme the whole time in order to just get a bunch of zombies back in his employ.
In his sweatshop.
Yeah.
to make the little tchotchkes that he sells in his gift shop.
And so they bring him back, and they're like, he's defective, and the necromancer's like, all right, I'll take him off your hands, and he's like got this whole sweatshop full of zombies.
That's so messed up. Yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything to say about this episode? I mean,
It was a good way to start the season.
Yeah, great way to start the season. Had a great setup.
They set up some stuff. That's what I like about this show. They set up a little bit every show. It's like, what are we going to see for next show? It's going to set up something down the road. Because now we got necromancers and zombies. And, so I do want to say really quick before we get going, this show has become the single show that I actually stay up and make sure that I watch live.
Oh, wow.
I have it set on my DVR, but it's just, for some reason, I was up at 10 o'clock on Wednesday nights for every single episode of this series this year. So
that's cool.
Yeah, not a lot of shows do that to me anymore.
Yeah,
so
it's hard to find.
It really kind of fills that void that The Office and Parks and Rec left behind.
I can see that.
I think
they even made like meta jokes about the camera guys. Like they acknowledged that the people were there with cameras this time. I don't think they did that in the first season.
No, they
did.
They
did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I must have forgot about that. All right, cut. All right, episode 2, season 2, episode 2 is called Ghost. It's titled Ghost. So,
oh god,
Jude, do you want to set up what this episode was about?
The vampires hold a seance to deal with a ghost infestation.
Oh, so first of all, it's revealed that there's a ghost haunting the house.
Yes, and they don't believe in ghosts.
Which
is hilarious. Guillermo's like reaction to that, he's like, wait a second. I've seen werewolves. I've seen zombies. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff, but ghosts are too far? Like man, that's hilarious.
And the ghost ends up being
the ghost of
Yes.
Jeff, Nadia's long-standing boyfriend.
Yeah,
who keeps dying.
Nadia's reincarnated lover. And I guess like after he died last time, he decided to haunt them to get revenge on Laszlo.
It was like every ghost has unfinished business,
Yeah.
right? And his unfinished business was like, I resurrected, but I didn't get a chance to like be with you, and before I died or something like that. I think was the
something like
reason.
that. And then they discover that
Because they're dead.
their ghosts are still kind of like unresolved. And so their ghosts start like haunting them.
Well, they summon themselves.
Yeah, they have a seance that
summon their own
They
ghosts.
summon their own
Yeah.
ghost.
Which was the one who was
Laszlo
not
killed me.
sexually satisfied.
Laszlo had to sexually satisfy his own self.
These ghost hands don't have the friction that I need. And the end of the episode, the whole room is filled with cum.
It's just so gross.
Just white goo everywhere.
And Nadia's like, what is this stuff? Like a ghostly residue? And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And Nadia's ghost actually possesses a doll.
Yeah.
there's now
she doesn't want to let go of her ghost, so she puts it in a doll.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
she gets
creepy
along
ass
really
doll.
well with her ghost.
Yeah.
Who is now a recurring character on the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So several jokes.
Yeah, we have a
throughout the
possessed doll.
Yeah.
And then Nandor's ghost was actually, he wanted the ghost of his horse.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And
He
so
wanted
like,
to be reunited with his horse.
So like and it was funny because Nandor's ghost hasn't, he died. So like he doesn't know English. And Nandor has been alive for so long, he forgot his native tongue. So he couldn't talk to himself.
Why does he still have an accent then? He still has the accent.
He's like, it's been so long since I've spoken this
Guillermo.
language.
Guillermo. God, this show is freaking pathetic.
Was that the episode where Nadia found out that Nandor was the one who like destroyed her village?
Yes.
Yes, with the painting.
Yeah.
Like, who is this? Oh, that's me. You destroyed my village? That's pretty funny.
And that was Colin Robinson orchestrated that so he could feed off of their
Yeah.
ire
Yes.
with it.
And then how did they fix the painting? What did he paint over himself?
He painted not Nadia's husband. What's his name?
Laszlo?
Andor?
Yeah.
Laszlo.
Laszlo.
He painted Laszlo's face on the guy with the horse. And he's like, look, I'm riding to you so that I can take you and make love. and then the other guy's like, where am I? He's like, you're in the burning building over there. That's a great moment.
But it's always funny because like Colin Robinson, who's the energy vampire, he's always kind of in the background, and
He's my favorite
He just
character.
lies in wait until like something awkward happens, and
with
he
a
just like
creepy grin on his face every time.
And his eyes are glowing
Yeah,
now.
Was that no? Wasn't that this? It wasn't this episode.
Well, he did that often in the whole
he?
series. Yeah.
Oh, okay. He has a whole episode in this season
Yeah.
dedicated to him and
Oh,
how he
that
becomes
was my
like
favorite episode.
ultra
That's
powerful.
episode 5.
It's so funny. We'll get there.
Don't
in a
want to get
second.
ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. So any favorite moments besides? I mean, mine was the masturbating your own ghost thing.
But they didn't even show that.
No,
they
didn't
just
show
implied it.
Just
It's
implied
just
it.
like
it was freaking
it's like
genius.
God, the whole room is just covered in jizz. It's just disgusting. It's just wow.
That was my favorite moment. Cadis, do you have a favorite moment?
I really liked the reveal that Yef was the original
Yes.
ghost. Yef, and like at first Nadia's kind of into it that he like came back for her, but then he's like, then she kind of gets annoyed with him.
He gets too needy.
Yeah, he gets too needy.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of torn between that and Nadja's doll,
Yeah.
possessed doll.
I love her doll.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the doll looks exactly like her.
Yeah.
It's like a doll of her now with her ghost inside it.
Yeah.
So
And
she's
it,
got like a mini me.
And it like moves and talks and everything.
Yeah.
It's really
it's
cool.
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
It's cool. I like it.
It's awesome.
What's you have a favorite moment in this episode, Vader?
Oh, I don't know. It was a good episode. It was funny. You know, I like the ghost effects that they used. You know, you could tell
So
they.
it was very like Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I liked how none of them believed in ghosts until like they saw them.
It's like, oh shit.
There's a f***ing ghost on our front porch. He runs out there with a sword and he flies right through it and falls on the lawn. Oh my God, man. This show freaking, like, I have to admit, dude, I have to thank you guys for introducing me to this show because like vampires and this like occult stuff is really not my bag. Like I kind of tend to stay away from it. This freaking show is so goddamn funny.
It's so funny.
I can't help it. It's so funny. My wife's like, you watching that weird vampire show? I'm like, yes. It's so good. Anyway, all right.
So episode 3.
Brain
Episode-
scramblies.
Brain scramblies.
Which what?
Brain scramblies.
It's the
Super Bowl.
The one where okay.
Oh, this. Yeah. Okay.
This-
Yeah.
What do they call it? The
Superior owl.
Yes,
I think
the
this was.
super owl.
I think this was my least favorite.
Superb
probably.
owl.
Superb owl.
Yeah.
The only thing, okay, I have to admit, like I'm reading the synopsis of this episode. The group goes to like their first human Super Bowl party, and
The
And they
neighbors
think
invite
it's-
them over.
The
They
neighbors
think
invite
it's
them
a
over.
party to
Worship.
owls.
I completely forgot about all of that. The only thing I remember about this episode was Guillermo finding the freaking
the vampire slayer.
the vampire, not the vampire slayers, because. Well, I guess it was revealed at the very end, but there was the mosquito.
Mosquito.
He's looking for virgins, and he's like, "Well, I've ran out of all the nerds, so I have to find somebody else." And he's like googling like small little nerd
There's like a
groups.
mosquito club.
Yeah, mosquito club. Like these people are definitely virgins.
Yeah, it turns out they're vampire hunters.
Yeah. Anyway, like I said, I don't remember a lot about this episode. You guys remind me?
Yeah, so basically they go over to their neighbors to watch the Super Bowl, and their neighbor accidentally sees Nandor and Laszlo do some like vampire stuff. And so he's like, oh my God, you guys are vampires. And so they decide to erase his memory, but they erase like
Everything.
All of his memory.
You will not remember anything ever again. Ever. Very ever. Or something like that. He's all dead vegetable.
It turns out like it makes him so much nicer, and like his wife loves the new him. And
Oh, that's right. They had like the little wives club where they're all bitching about their
Yeah.
husbands and like drinking wine and stuff. And they're like, and Natasha's like, why did you marry them?
It's like, and Laszlo and Nandor double whammied him. You know, only would have taken one of them to do the thing, and he got it twice.
But then they try to get him his memory back.
yeah.
Once they realize that
And
they
not
messed
just like
up.
you gave him the brain scramblies.
And
We're
while,
never going to be invited back.
and while this is going on, so Nadja remembers like this guy's grandmother. Who
She was a
like-
little girl.
She was a little girl. And then she realizes that she like stole a necklace from her. And so she starts like searching the house for this necklace.
I don't know.
And
First,
it's got like the dying scream of like her grandmother or
Has
her mother or
anybody- Has
something.
anybody heard any screaming around here? No, my favorite part about that scene where she's like talking to this old lady who she knew when she was a very young girl. And she's like, oh, I used to hang her from the ceiling from her feet. She would scream for hours. It was wonderful. And then she's like, oh my God, you stole my necklace. You son of a bitch. You did. And she starts like beating up the little old lady.
Yeah.
I was cracking up at that point. That was, yeah, I'm starting to remember this episode a little bit more now. Anybody else?
But the whole like mosquito club thing. So like when Guillermo shows up, and basically Craig Robinson from the Office.
Yeah.
Like he's the leader of this group, and once Guillermo finds out that they're like actually like, serious about hunting down vampires and stuff, he starts like trying to infiltrate the group so that he can protect his guys.
His masters.
Yeah, his masters. And it's just really funny because like all these guys like they're
super nerds.
Oh yeah, and they don't know what they're talking
No,
about at all.
But one of them is the former roommate of the girl who got transformed into a
Yes.
vampire last
Yes.
season.
So the previous season, Guillermo brought a bunch of LARPers over. She was group.
Was she even in this season?
No,
No,
She wasn't, right?
she disappeared last season.
she's got the power of invisibility.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I literally. She,
So yeah, they'll bring her back next season, and we'll find out she's been there the whole time.
Something like that. Yeah.
she's been watching
Shit,
everything.
you just destroyed season 3 for me.
Spoiler alert for season 3. Yeah, she literally disappeared in season 1, and we haven't seen her since. But her roommate, who watched her die
Transform,
and
yeah.
transform into a vampire, is now a vampire slayer and part of this little mosquito group. And it's quite funny because they're all sitting around, they're all talking about like, oh, we're gonna practice fighting, and they bring like wooden stakes, and they're doing like the goofiest like little ring fight practice loot. Okay, now you have to stab like this, and Guillermo's like, I'm going to infiltrate the group and try and sabotage their efforts.
And the one guy's like, we should have an orgy so that we make sure none of
my
us are
God.
virgins.
like every meeting, he's like, "Can we have an orgy now?"
like,
And there's only like one girl.
There's one girl in the group. There's a bunch of other dudes, and he's like, "Can we have an orgy so that we can like not be virgins anymore?" And he's like, "Stop suggesting that every meeting." Yeah, that's a good moment too. That was the biggest thing that I remember from this episode was the mosquito group and Guillermo. Like I think that struck me as being
It was a
the
good
funniest part.
setup for the.
Oh, it's fantastic
What come
setup.
later? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
bring that mic closer to your face. buddy.
I also like how their neighbor who got his brain scrambled basically ends up being like a better husband because of it.
Yeah.
And like he reconnects because like he sees his wife like for the first time to him.
You're beautiful.
He's like, you're beautiful. And like he just starts like praising her, and she hasn't seen this side of him for like 20 years. And
Yeah.
she's just like, oh, well, thank you.
She's like, let's go do it right now.
I completely forgot about that whole part of the episode. I lost it with Guillermo. All right, anybody? Did we do favorite moments for this episode yet? What was Matthew Kadish? What was your favorite moment from this episode?
Oh, I think it was the superior owl joke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same.
It was pretty good.
Same for you. All right, Vader. what do you-
Superb owl.
Superb owl.
Superb owl.
I love
Because
owls.
vampires love owls.
Yes, they are nocturnal.
I don't know if I have a favorite moment.
No?
No, I don't know. It was funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine.
I don't know
was-
if I have a favorite standout moment from every single episode, but you know.
I just, well, like I said, like the only thing I remember of this episode is when he found that group. Like that struck me as hilarious that this group of like mosquito catchers turned out to be vampire slayers. Like the rest of the episode just disappeared to me.
I love Guillermo's life.
He's
Yeah.
so awesome. He's my favorite character. 100%.
All right.
Like he
All
has
right.
the most traumatic stuff happen to him.
Oh my God.
moving
it's so
moving
funny.
toward our favorite episode.
Okay.
We'll go to
Episode 4, The Curse. Jude, you want to set this up? What was this about?
Is this the Mailer Demon
Yes.
episode? Yes.
This is your favorite
Okay.
episode?
It's one of my favorite episodes.
Okay.
This one, I won't skip ahead. So this one is, I forget whose computer it is. Is it Laszlo?
It's Laszlo.
It's Laszlo.
Laszlo's computer.
Laszlo has a Mailer Daemon, or is it pronounced demon?
I don't
Mailer
know.
Demon?
I think it's demon, yeah.
They pronounce it demon.
Yes, but how is it really pronounced? Is it Daemon? Mailer Daemon?
I think it
An
can go either
email.
way.
And they
Well, he
think,
gets a chain letter, right?
Well, Laszlo's trying to figure out how to work email. He doesn't know how to work email.
Yeah.
So the episode kind of starts
okay,
with
we'll just take it.
Okay. Set the table, Kate.
Yeah.
the episode kind of starts with Guillermo teaching Laszlo or teaching Nandor about email, and so he's had this like AOL account or something like that for like a really long time, and so he's going through his backlog of emails, and he comes across this chain email
Yes.
that says like you have to forward this to
10 more
to
people.
10 more people on your contact list, or else you will be cursed.
Yeah.
And so all the
They
vampires
take this very
like,
seriously.
Oh my God!
because it was sent from the mailer demon, which if you know anything about email, that's just like
Wait,
this
no. I think
No, because
they
what
got
happened?
that first,
Yeah.
and then they sent it out, and then he got the Mailer
Yeah,
Demon.
because he used a faked email address.
Yes.
He's like, we have to think
That's
of,
why the
we
curse
have to
came
think
back.
of 10 different emails.
yeah,
and then
they made up an email.
they made up an email, and then he gets a return message from the made up email saying mailer demon. He's like, oh my God, the mailer demon.
Not just pissed.
so like Nandor, Nadia, and Laszlo are all like freaking out that they've been cursed. So they turn to Colin Robinson because he knows a thing or two about technology. And once Colin Robinson realizes what's going on, he just starts fucking with them. And while this is going on,
They're like, we need your email address.
He's like, okay, I'll give you mine, but then I get to have all of yours. And he's like, he's so into it, man. It's so funny how much he messes with them. Is this the same episode as the troll?
no.
No,
Okay, all right, sorry. I'll
that's my other favorite.
yeah, I'll leave that.
And so while this is going on, Guillermo goes back to the Mosquito Club, and he finds out that they've uncovered a house that in Staten Island that they think contains vampires, and they're going to go kill them. And so
And he's convinced it's his house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like he goes along with them, and it turns out it's this other house that's full of vampires.
But before that,
Whole
on
family.
the
whole
on the
family
way
of vampires.
on the way to get there, remember when he calls his actual house and he tries to warn them, and he's like, "Listen to me, you have to get out of the house. There's people coming to come and kill you." And it's like they're freaking out because they think it has something to do with the chain letter.
Well, they
And
think it's the
demon.
mailer demon who called them because his voice sounds all like distorted. He's like, they're coming to kill you, and they're like, the curse, it's real. So he goes with the Mosquito Club to this house, and at first it just seems like it's like an abandoned house or whatever.
Yeah.
But then like
And
No,
he's
it's like
so
it's like a
relieved.
regular house. It's
Yeah.
like some middle class family's house. They
Yeah.
got pictures of their kids up and all that stuff.
yeah,
And he's like, these aren't vampires.
Yeah.
We have to get out of here.
guys, this
and
is-
then it turns out like the house is full of vampires.
I'm like creepy ass vampires.
Yeah, and he kills all of them.
Well, all the Mosquito Club people start getting killed by these vampires, and so it's up to Guillermo to save them. And like he just like slaughters.
He goes in like a badass.
Yeah,
he's like, oh god, I got to get these guys out of
Yeah,
there.
he starts pulling those Van Helsing moves.
Yes,
and
dude.
he like jumps out the second story window with the girl, and like lands in the bushes. And, like they make it back to the van and get away,
Who
but there's only like
survives that?
I think there was only like him and that girl.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I thought they all.
I thought they all did.
No. I don't know that it was just two that survived.
The orgy kid definitely died.
Okay.
The one who always wanted.
What about the big guy from The Office?
No, I don't think he survived either.
Because he was being tossed around by the
You know what? He
vampire.
might have survived.
I think he
I don't.
did.
They
I
never
thought he
followed
did.
up after that, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But it was a great episode and a great reveal too, because the whole time you're convinced that these people are breaking into like a regular person's house, because that's how it's played out and that's how it's kind of presented to you from Guillermo's perspective. And then once they get in there and they see these two little, the moment that actually legitly freaked me
Yes.
out, right? There's a little room with like these two beds. It's a shared
These
bedroom
two
for
sleeping
kids.
little
Two
girls.
sleeping little girls. And Guillermo's like, look, guys, this is not right. We got to get out of here. These are just like regular people. And then the camera pans, and then the camera pans back, and you see the two little girls, glowing eyes, just standing there like, hi, guys, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, my God. Freaking
It was very like out of
Shining.
Shining, yeah.
I freaked out for a minute.
It felt a lot like Paranormal Activity.
Oh,
Yeah.
that
You
too.
know, like there was some like
there was like an old grandma vampire. God, that freaking episode was creepy.
Yeah, the whole family was weird, man.
Yeah.
It was cool. I liked it. It was fun.
And then when Guillermo returns back home, he comes back just as they get their 10 emails and they believe the curse
He's
has
got
been
blood
broken.
all over him.
Yeah, they don't even notice. It was a good episode.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Do you guys have a favorite moment, Kadish?
Just I like the Mailer Damon joke.
Yeah.
I agree.
It was clever. I like Guillermo again. Like he's my favorite character. So like watching him go in there and like be a complete badass, which is so different from the physical attributes that he has. He looks just like a normal, like kind of overweight nerd. Doesn't know it. He goes in there and just like massacres these vampires. It was amazing. That was my favorite moment. Jude, do you have one?
I love Colin Robinson. He's my favorite character, and so I love his like dry humor. And that he's masterminding.
Yeah.
Like that he knows this isn't real, and I'm going to get something out of this. I'm going to get fed from this.
Yeah, I
And
just
I'm
like
I'm going to play along.
he has no qualms about feeding off of his roommates.
Yes.
Vader, do you have a favorite moment from this episode?
I just think the Mailer Demon part was
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
It's the best.
Right on.
All right.
Oh my
Now
God.
our
It was-
favorite
it was
episode.
Nadja's reaction was, oh my God, we're cursed.
Yeah, Nadia's a big believer in like curses and
Yeah.
stuff.
All right. Episode 5. You look like you.
Colin's promotion.
This is my favorite episode.
Yeah, go
of the
ahead.
season.
Take it, Kadish.
You sure you don't want it?
No. You.
All right, so Colin Robinson is my favorite character in the show, and this episode was all about him. And basically, what happens in this episode is through some weird chain of events, he gets promoted to the boss of his office. And technically, he doesn't even work there. He just shows up to feed off of the people in the office. But like they give him a promotion, and he realizes that because he's in a position of power now.
Well, at first he was super bummed out. He's like, how is it? He was like all stressed out that he wouldn't be able to feed off of the people of the office anymore.
But then he realizes that now that he's in a position of power, he can actually force people to do stuff that they don't want to do. And that gives him even more energy. So he just starts abusing his power by like telling
And
like
he gets like all these superpowers.
Yeah.
He starts flying. His hair grows in.
like there's a scene where like he's at like the peak of his abilities, and he's like just walking through and he's like working harder, hardly working. The person
And the
just
guy
like
dies.
like people just start dropping like flies. And at home, so Nandor, Nadja, Laszlo, and Guillermo, like Colin Robinson's so powerful, he doesn't have to do anything, and they're just completely drained of energy.
Yeah.
Like they're so lazy they can't even get out of their chairs.
It's like,
He's
Guillermo,
like completely drained the entire house.
Guillermo, come over here so I can feed off of you. And he's like, you're going to have to come to me because I can't move. Neither of them get up. Like, no.
And Colin Robinson gets so powerful that he like multiplies.
He's a mega. No, first first he has a mega mind, right? He's got the giant dome.
Yeah, he gets a huge head full of hair. but eventually he like separates into 3 different versions of himself because like he can feed more if there's more of him.
Yeah.
And then like his 3 different versions kind of like start
bickering.
Like a feedback loop
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
they keep sucking each other's energy,
Yeah,
and so
and
they all 3 of them die.
all 3 of them die. and so once the vampires recover, they go to bury him in their yard. And one of the Collins,
the original version.
Colin Prime. Yeah.
Colin Prime.
Yeah, he gets resurrected, and he's like, "Oh, I'm better now."
No, didn't he say he's like, no, I was faking it, because there was a little bit of a subplot where like they didn't want him there anymore or anything like that, or they didn't want to hang out with him. So he's like, well,
He was excited about his promotion,
and nobody cared. That's
cared.
what it was. Yeah, he was excited about his promotion, but he went
And then
home.
he went all, I'll show them.
Yeah, yeah. And the whole reason why he like faked his death at the end of the episode was so that he could listen to his own eulogy.
Yeah.
And see how much everybody actually cared about him.
Yeah, and they actually said some nice things when they
Yeah.
were burying him, and that caused him to get back up.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is like under his management, the business that he worked at went bankrupt.
Because everybody was like dead or not working anymore.
Yeah, because productivity like went down the toilet, and so like they had to shut that office, and so like the episode ends with him basically just showing up at a completely different office.
Yeah.
that he doesn't
He's the
work
new
at,
guy, right?
And he just like claims an empty desk and just starts like like
It's like, hey everybody, I'm the new guy.
How's it going?
Starts feeding off of him right away.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a great episode. I think my favorite episode, or my favorite moment in this episode was probably when they reveal he walks in and he's shaving his giant head. And it's like, he's like become so powerful. His eyes are glowing, like you said. He's got all these different powers. He's starting to fly and stuff, and he can like drain people just from walking by. Like last season, he was my favorite character. Colin. I think
They always call him Colin Robinson. Yes. Always both names.
Colin Robinson was my favorite character from the first season. Guillermo kind of took over because when they revealed that he was like a Van Helsing, I kind of got amped to see where that was going to go. But this episode kind of made me like, oh man, he's such a good character.
He's such a good character.
So perfect. And it's so great to see where it's going to go and how he just kind of keeps resetting the clock and starting over in these new positions and draining people. The whole episode was fantastic. I don't have any complaints about any of it.
Yeah, the whole episode was great. But my favorite moment was like, he's got the full head of hair. And he's walking through his office and he's just pointing at people. And he's like saying these mundane things.
Oh God, that's my favorite part.
Oh, you take it away then.
He's just like does the finger guns at someone. He's like working hard or hardly working, and they just fucking die.
He's like, Mondays, am I right?
They pass out.
Vader, you got a favorite moment from this
I
episode?
think that's probably mine too.
Yeah.
I concur.
The whole episode.
stuff.
The whole
Yeah.
episode was great.
Yeah, but like that scene where like all of his vampire roommates were just so drained they couldn't get out of the chair. It's just, I couldn't stop laughing. It was so good.
It was really funny.
Now, episode 6 is also another really good episode.
Yeah, episode 6 is fantastic, and
It's
it
the
also
Mark
has-
Hamill episode.
Mark Hamill has a great cameo. Not even cameo, like an actual.
He was a guest
role.
star. Yeah.
A guest starring from Mark Hamill as a character who is coming back to get a debt from Laszlo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Laszlo, I guess, is it ever specified how long ago this happened? I feel like it was like
Hundreds of years.
Like
Yes.
you came to California one time and you didn't pay your rent or something
and
like that.
Mark Hamill plays Jim the vampire.
Yeah.
His name's Jim.
And so the whole episode is about how this character of that Mark Hamill plays comes and tries to collect this debt from Laszlo, and then
He's got the
Laszlo,
vendetta.
yeah, and then Laszlo, instead of like either paying his debt off or fighting in a duel, he just runs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like
Goes
starts
on the
a
run.
starts a whole new life in some podunk town somewhere.
Jackie Daytona.
As Jackie Daytona. And
he's
the only disguise that he has is he puts
cowboy hat.
He puts a toothpick in his mouth.
He wears jeans.
And he wears jeans.
No, it's the toothpick that sells it.
And
though.
nobody knows who he is after that. All it is the toothpick, and it's revealed like I think 2 different times.
Just
where
a benevolent bartender.
he goes to some podunk town and kills the bar owner, takes over the bar, and then like befriends the community. It was a freaking
Yeah,
fantastic.
and he becomes a
episode.
big fan of girls volleyball.
Yeah.
yeah
He starts coaching.
yeah.
No, he's like sponsoring them.
Yeah, he's sponsoring
So weird.
them.
But-
Such a weird premise.
Yeah, it's funny because Jim the vampire, played by Mark Hamill, shows up, and all he wants is like $100.
It's not even that much. Yeah.
And Nadja and Nando are like Laszlo, just pay the man, and Laszlo's like, no, it's the principle of the thing.
He's like, I never pay my debts.
What was the reason? There was a reason that he said he didn't want to, though. He said, "Didn't I? I found a turd in the middle of the living room or something like that, didn't he?"
Something like that.
It was something stupid where he left because the place was dirty and he didn't want to clean it.
So Jim challenges him to a duel, and they go out to the front yard, and just as they're about to duel, Laszlo turns into a bat and flies away. And he just runs. And the camera crew catches up with him in this like small town where he's taken over this bar, and he's now Jackie Daytona.
What a great name.
Yeah.
Jackie Daytona.
As a pickup.
And Nadja's at home, and she's feeling abandoned, and so like she's kind of crying to herself in doll form, like her possessed doll.
Oh, yeah.
and Colin Robinson makes a pass at her, tries to take advantage of her weakened state, and then like he has an aside. He's like, the awkward kiss is always the most
draining.
And like he tried to take advantage of her to feed.
That's so messed up.
Yeah, but so eventually Jim the vampire tracks down Laszlo to the small town.
But he doesn't know it's him though at first.
Yeah, because he's got the toothpick.
He just kind of randomly goes in this bar.
Exactly, like he's searching for Laszlo.
Yeah.
And he goes and he orders like a drink, and
It's like, I'll have one alcohol, please, sir.
Human. I'll have one human
One human alcohol.
and vampires can't drink or consume anything.
So they toss it over the shoulder.
Yeah, and so Laszlo, in order to keep up his appearance, he's like, "I'll have a drink with you, friend." And so like he pours them both a drink, and when neither of them are looking, they both toss it over their shoulder to make it look like they're drinking. But now that Laszlo knows that Jim's there, it kind of throws a monkey wrench in his hand because he was trying to raise money to get the volleyball team that he's like adopted to go to like the final
Go to state or
Go to
something.
state,
Yeah.
yeah.
State.
And at a certain point, it's revealed that Jackie Daytona is Laszlo because he like drops his toothpick.
He drops his toothpick, and everybody's all of a sudden like,
Oh no, I thought he was standing by a mirror and he didn't cast a reflection.
that's what it
Yeah.
was.
That's what it was. Somebody pulled down. There was a moment like earlier in the
Oh,
episode.
yeah, all of
where
the mirrors
everybody's
were
like,
covered.
I don't know. He's what they say. He's
Eccentric?
so humble or something. He doesn't have any vanity whatsoever because he covers all the mirrors for some reason. That was like way at the beginning of the episode, and then at the end, somebody accidentally pulls down one of the covers of the mirror, and you see somebody shaking a drink, but there's nobody there. It's just a bottle of whiskey like shaking. It was pretty funny. And then he's like, "You're a vampire."
And so eventually, like once he's revealed, him and Jim have this fight, and the bar like catches on fire and starts burning down. And eventually, Laszlo pays off his debt by gifting Jim this priceless artifact, which is basically one of those singing bass heads that you hang on the bar wall. And the vampires have never seen anything like this before, and so Jim's like, it's a priceless heirloom.
Yeah.
And he kind
What
of
did he compare it to? He's like, do you remember those other, like it was another type of thing like that. He's like, this is just like that, only a fish. And he's like, oh my gosh.
he's
never
like, it's a
seen
one of a kind.
It's a one of a kind fish, and it like you push the button and it talks like something you buy at Bass Pro Shop or something.
Yeah. And then Jim kind of takes over the Jackie Daytona role where he's like into girls volleyball and he's like a pillar of the community. And
So
stuff
Mark
like that.
Hamill is a vampire who owns a bar and helps out with a local volleyball team at the end of this episode.
But then he accidentally breaks his singing bass head at the end of the episode.
does he?
Yeah. And
And then it's revealed you can just buy those anywhere.
he's like, Laszlo.
Oh my gosh, I missed that.
Yep.
That's hilarious. I didn't know. I totally missed that part of the episode. I don't know how,
It
but
was at the very end.
Wow.
I think it might have been a post-credit sequence.
oh, maybe because I always like if it pulls up like watch next episode, I always just hit it. So maybe if it was a post credit,
They reveal Laszlo's last name in this too. Like, do you guys remember what it was?
No.
It was like it's like Craven Man or something like that. It's like it basically means coward. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird.
Anyway, favorite moments from this episode. Jude, you got one?
I don't know. Maybe the karaoke.
Oh yeah, that was a good
I
moment.
really like the awkward kiss that Colin Robinson tries to pull on Nadja.
What about you, Vader? You got a favorite moment from this episode with Mark Hamill?
Probably just his reveal at the start of the episode. She's like, "Holy crap, that's Mark Hamill!" But it was
full
fun.
vampire, like red draped.
Totally over the top. Yeah.
There was a moment we haven't talked about this. It's kind of like a very, very small subplot is they're burying so many bodies in the front yard that there's now becoming sinkholes because
it's all squishy.
The bodies decompose and they leave this crevice of space where
it's becoming like a real health hazard, safety hazard.
And like people keep the first delivery guy falls into one, and Guillermo goes to try and rescue him. And he starts throwing up because it stinks so bad. And then when Mark Hamill's character tries to run after Laszlo, he falls into one too, and he's like, "Damn it!" It was a great moment. It was really
I forgot about those sinkholes.
Yeah. It was a good. I think my favorite moment from this episode was the toothpick. Like the fact that was all he needed to disguise himself, freaking had me rolling the whole time. It was so funny. All right, episode 7, The Return. The vampires decide to open their home to an old nemesis who's down on his luck.
This was a big throwback to season 1.
Yeah. It was
it was the club owner who had the cursed hat.
The cursed hat. Yeah, it was made out of human skin, right?
Played by Dave Grohl.
No, not Dave Grohl. No. That's the
what's his name?
I don't know. It's the guy from Parks and Rec. He plays the radio announcer guy. He does a lot of
Nick Kroll.
Yeah,
Nick Kroll. And we had the return of his crew, which included Undead Elvis and was it Count Rapula?
Oh yeah, and that bug lady.
Oh yeah, and so like basically what happened was there was an episode in season 1 that had to do with this cursed hat of Laszlo's, and they go to New York to this nightclub that's run by this guy who's I guess his name's Simon. And basically, he wins the cursed hat in a bet with Laszlo, and Laszlo hates giving up this hat, even though it brings him nothing but misfortune.
Right.
So the minute that Nick Kroll's character, Simon the Vampire, gets that hat, the curse is shifted to him, and his entire nightclub burns down. And you think like him and his entire crew are dead, but it turns out that he like ended up in the sewer and like was surviving on rats and stuff, and like.
A very Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah, and like certain members of his crew like find him and help nurse him back to health, and he like ends up luring Laszlo and Nandor into like the sewer, and reveals himself, and like they feel really bad that like they're basically the reason why like his life is terrible,
and also that Laszlo stole the hat back.
Yeah. So they bring him to their house because they feel sorry for the guy, and while they're there, that vampire lady that's like his sidekick, but she's like, very hardcore, like always a vampire, like looks like really fucked up. She suspects that Guillermo is a slayer, and so she tries to kill him, and he ends up killing her.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And you think that because like Simon keeps saying like, where is she? That he's kind of catching on to Guillermo.
Because there's the pile of dust in the middle of the living
Why is there a person-shaped pile of dust in the living room? Guillermo, clean up.
Yeah, but it turns out this was all just like a very elaborate ploy to get that cursed hat back from Laszlo, and they end up like going into the sewer again, and Simon reveals that his entire crew is with him, including Undead Elvis, who had, I guess Laszlo was the one who actually resurrected him. And, thought that him and Elvis were friends, but Elvis was like, "Nah, man, I'm with these guys." And
Laszlo's like, Guillermo, did you accidentally kill her? It's okay.
No, that was Nandor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Nandor finds out that Guillermo slayed this vampire, and he starts covering up for him. But very lazily, he's just like, he doesn't care.
I gotta say, man, I don't remember a lot about this episode. I think this is probably my least favorite one because I'm listening to everything and it sounds really familiar, and I know I watched it, but I'm like, I don't remember anything about this episode.
It was kind of a weird filler episode.
Yeah, it didn't.
Not a whole lot happened in it.
Didn't feel like it had a lot of. It was just kind of like you said. It was like a callback from season 1.
Yeah, I think it was mostly just because they wanted Nick Kroll back.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see that. I don't have a favorite moment from this episode because I don't remember enough about it. Maybe the dust thing. Like, why is there a person-shaped pile of
that
dust?
That was pretty good.
I like when in the beginning of the episode when Nadia and Laszlo are talking, and she's like, "I'm so glad you got rid of that hat," and he's like pantomiming to the camera that it's upstairs.
Vader, you got a moment? Do you remember this episode?
Yeah. I don't know if I have a favorite moment, but I liked all the different vampires and characters in the show.
Yeah.
just the different types that they got and everything. So.
Okay, did you say already you had a favorite moment?
This was probably my least favorite episode of the season, so I don't think I have like a really standout moment for me. But just like the joke of the cursed hat, I like that as a concept.
All right, moving on to episode 8, collaboration. Kadish, why don't you tell us what this episode was about?
All right, so there are 2 major storylines in this episode, 3 if you count the troll. So basically,
this is the troll episode. Oh, I should have had you do it.
This is my other favorite. No, it's fine.
Okay. I'll let her take that storyline. Basically, one of Nandor's old familiars from the 1970s shows back up, and he had his mind erased, but he now like got his memory back, and so he goes to Nandor to get turned into a vampire. And Guillermo realizes that Nandor doesn't turn any of his familiars into vampires. And
just erases their memories.
Yeah. And so like he starts getting very resentful, and he ends up like leaving Nandor's service to go with this other
like
newly turned.
Yeah. So like he goes to these familiar brunches or like mixers or whatever.
Familiar socials.
It's like I go there to feed myself. I take the food with me.
Every month, all the familiars around town get together and kind of socialize. And one of them finally got turned into a vampire. And so she's like, anyone who comes into my service, you'll be a vampire in 9 months. Guaranteed. And so all the other familiars are like, oh my God, 9 months?
Yeah.
Like I've been with these guys for like years.
Yeah, Guillermo's like, I've served my master for 10 years.
Yeah. So basically Guillermo leaves Nandor to go with this new vampire. And
this is a big falling out. He's so mad at Guillermo.
Yeah.
And Nandor is now stuck with his old familiar who's like an old man
from the 70s.
Yeah, and he can't do anything. So that was the Guillermo Nandor storyline, where Nandor basically realizes that he's got to treat Guillermo better and tries to win him back. Then there's the storyline with Nadja and Laszlo, and basically, apparently Laszlo is like a musician, and he's created songs that have kind of found their way into the fabric of society.
Yeah, he does what? Row, row, row your boat or something like that.
Yeah, but it's like super vulgar.
Yeah.
Stroke, stroke, stroke your cock.
Like, that's literally what it is. and so like Colin Robinson, sensing that him and Nadja are both like kind of upset about this, kind of stokes the flame, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you create a band, and I can book you a gig."
Colin was manipulative this entire season. It was funny.
So like Colin's plan is to basically
have them destroy each other.
Well, not only have them destroy each other because they're going to be bickering through the creative process, but he wants to book them a gig where they're so bad that he can feed off the energy of the crowd.
Yeah.
He takes them to open mic.
Yeah, he takes them to open mic night.
It's not even like an open mic night. It's like an open talent night. So there's like comedians, and then he's like, and now there's this weird band.
And so they try singing all these new songs that they created, and they're terrible. And Colin Robinson's like, yes.
I love this scene.
And his eyes are
where
glowing.
they ask him, like, what does open mic mean? He's like, well, they only open it to the most talented people.
And he's like, make sure that you have original stuff because people love that.
And then they start singing this song that they created a long time ago, but it became like an actual song.
Was it Come On Eileen?
Yes. It was Come On Eileen. And so like they start singing their version of it, and the crowd starts getting into it. And Colin Robinson gets all pissed off. He's like, God damn it.
And there's another little. Was this the troll episode?
No.
When is the troll episode?
I think we passed
I thought
it.
that was the last one.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
You know what? It was the last one.
Yeah.
Did we skip it?
No.
Oh man.
Yes.
In the return? No.
Wasn't it?
I thought it was the last episode of the season.
No, because he was with the whole group when they went to the play. So
I don't know. In one of these episodes, there's a troll.
I think I think it was the return because he.
Sure.
Yeah, because he wasn't involved with the curse thing. Like he had discovered that.
Oh, I think it's in Witches.
No, because
Oh yeah, because he's with them.
He's
too.
with them
He's
during
with
that
them.
whole thing.
yeah, I think in the return, like he discovers that he can feed off of
Internet.
the internet.
Internet trolling.
It's like it's not as pure, but if you do it enough, you can get a good meal out
Yeah.
of it.
That's right. He was looking for an internet troll who was trolling him, and
Yeah.
they got in a troll fight. And it turned out he was an actual troll.
Yeah.
When he found him, and they were like talking to each other, and
I love the,
in the
scene where
street,
He's
yeah.
like, you know, when they call you a dumbass, that you've got them. he's typing away on Twitter or some shit.
And then the troll's like speaking from a guy who probably lives in his mom's basement, and he's like, "Well, actually, I live in my own basement." Duh.
Dumbass. And calls him a dumbass, and he's like, he looks at the camera, he's like, oh my god, he got me. It was such a great moment. I think it was the one of the funniest things because I couldn't wait to talk about it. I can't believe I forgot what freaking episode it was in, but it was so funny because it's so goddamn true. Like if you, especially us being on Twitter all the time, like we see this shit happen every day,
dude, I troll people all the time.
all the time. You do. You're an asshole.
I am. Yeah.
I try not to, but I get trolled by stupid people, and it
I don't
irritates the
troll
shit out of me.
Well, it kind of depends how far you are into a 6-pack.
Yeah.
And then you turn into a complete dickhead. So it's
Yeah, but Colin Robinson starts like doing all this online detective work to find out where this guy is.
Yeah.
So he can go and like
Goes to his house.
confront him.
Tries to dox him or something.
Yeah, turns out he's this like 10-foot tall troll.
Actual troll.
Actual troll.
With a
then
huge dong.
They start fighting, but then they kind of reconcile, and then just as the sun starts to come up, he's like, "Oh man, don't you turn into stone when the sun?" And he's like, "Done."
yeah, because Colin Robinson, he specifically distracts him long enough so he can turn him to stone.
Yeah, that was the whole like he was trying to like feed off of him or at least distract him long enough for the sun to come up. And
But
it
like
was,
their argument had kind of been resolved by then.
Yeah, they realized that they were like buddy kind of thing. But then he kept them going. He kept that conversation going. And then when the sun comes up and the trolls turns to stone, he's like, "Yes,
Gotcha, bitch.
gotcha, bitch." Yeah, exactly.
And then the troll just reaches out for one last.
Yeah.
Grabs
He's
his
like,
head.
"Ah, shit."
Anyway, I have no idea what episode that was in, but it was a great moment.
I do think it was the return. I think that was Colin Robinson's story thread in that while they were dealing.
That's
with
my
the-
other favorite Colin Robinson moment.
yeah, it was great.
Oh, great subplot.
All right. I don't really have a favorite moment from episode 8, except for maybe the old man jokes that they had with his old
Oh, I
familiar.
love the reveal at the end that the old man was a vampire.
Yeah, he got turned into a
Yeah, he
vampire
got
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Nandor kept up his end of the bargain, turned him into a vampire. Guillermo gets 2 days off a week.
Oh,
One
that's
day.
right.
No, 1 day off.
day
a week.
off.
And it turns out that the newly turned vampire wasn't even a vampire. Her master was just
Yeah.
out of town, and she wanted to experience
had,
what it
like,
was
the
like
fake
to have
teeth on.
minions. Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone got betrayed, and Nandor gives Guillermo a pillow that hasn't been jerked off into.
Yeah. So
Because
it
like
was a clean pillow.
the old guy who was the former familiar.
He's like, "Oh, that's my old pillow."
He's like,
And
"No, it's not. That's a new pillow." He's like, "No, I recognize that pillow anywhere."
he's like, "I used to jerk off into that pillow every night."
So nasty.
All right. Episode 9. Witches.
Witches.
This was
I really like this episode.
This was
I
a
like
pretty
this
funny
episode,
episode.
too.
I love this. How Nadia just blames witches on everything.
Okay, you wanna set this episode up?
When Nandor and Laszlo are abducted by a coven of witches, the others must venture to Brooklyn to rescue them. So Nadia is a big believer of witches, and the rest of the house doesn't. They just like roll their eyes at her every time she blames witches for something, and then it turns out that this one time witches are to blame,
So
and
basically,
hijinks ensue
so basically, a coven of witches kidnap both Nandor and Laszlo.
for their jizz.
Yeah,
For their there's a lot of jizz in this season, huh?
Like they plan on extracting their essence so that
This season's very jizzy.
It's like a youth serum,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah.
use
Yeah.
their semen as a youth serum to keep themselves young.
yeah
Just say jizz, dude. It's okay.
yeah. So
Semen. I hate that word.
Trying to change it up a little bit,
So-
keep things fresh.
So clinical.
as
Clinical.
As Nandor and Laszlo are kidnapped, Nadia, Colin Robinson, and Guillermo all like track them down to this kind of like herbal store that the witches run.
Like a witch store.
Yeah, like a witch store. And so like they in trying to infiltrate the store, they get kind of captured by the witches and put into this magical room that there is no escape from. And meanwhile, the witches bring Laszlo and Nandor into like their little like I guess spell chamber, and they're going to do this
Extraction ceremony.
ceremony.
They're getting them all hot and bothered.
Yeah, and once Nandor and Laszlo find out what's going on, they're kind of like, I'm into this.
Oh my God, you're fully erect. And just throbbing.
He has a hard on.
They're both just sitting there, just like it's
ready to go. And then they realize what they're actually going to be using to extract the serum, the semen, the jizz,
the spunk, the man seed.
And it's a bunch of like medieval tools. And they all of a sudden are like, never mind.
Yeah, please come and rescue us.
I think Laszlo's into it.
Well, also the witches drop their kind of youthful facade, and they're all like old crones, and that gets Laszlo and Nandor even more into it. And so in the meantime, Colin Robinson and Nadia and Guillermo are stuck in this room, and it's filled with doors. And so they keep going through doors and finding like all this weird stuff,
gates to hell and stuff.
And they're trying to find an exit, and it turns out that the only way out is through a door marked exit, but it's in Spanish.
Yeah.
And so Guillermo's the only one who can read it. And so he's like, oh, here's the exit. And he just opens up, and Colin Robinson is like, I was going to do that.
Yeah. Because he's like, he prides himself on being like one of those puzzle room type people. He's like,
escape room.
Escape room. Yeah. It was pretty fun. That was a good moment too.
Yeah, and he's one of those escape room guys who goes in there and messes up everyone so he can feed off of them.
I want to see that episode.
But like once they escape, so they confront the witches, and it turns out Nadia and the head witch have like a history with one another.
Because she stole Laszlo's jizz before.
They had an affair.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Nadia didn't appreciate that.
That was the moment where she was like, "Do you think everybody with black hair looks like me?"
That's right, because the witch tricked Laszlo by putting on a Nadia disguise, but she looked nothing like her except she had black hair.
She just had black hair and bangs.
And Laszlo's like, I can't tell you apart.
There's two of you right now. She's like, who else has put a black wig on and had sex with you? And there was some other chick in the background.
Nandor.
With black.
Nandor.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, they revealed that Nandor and Laszlo fucked up.
Yeah, whatever.
God, what a reveal. Okay, that's my favorite moment from this episode.
And then Colin Robinson gets kidnapped and put in with Nandor and Laszlo to be extracted.
No, we don't want to. This is okay.
And then Guillermo comes in and saves the day. He's like, what if I could get you all the jizz you want anytime you want it, and you don't have to go through all this kidnapping and ceremony and stuff like that? And they're like, oh, tell us more.
Yeah.
And so like he's able to get
he just like
get his vampires
jars their jizz.
Yeah, to agree to jerk off into jars.
So Laszlo makes his deposits in the morning.
And he's selling this, right? So he's actually making money.
Yeah.
There was like a little tiny subplot that kind of was weaving through these episodes where I noticed
about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He wanted to start his own business, so he's starting this jizz collecting business that he sells to witches.
Yeah, now he sells the jizz to the witches. Yeah, it's so bad.
And he becomes friends with the black goat that they use to lure everyone. Yeah. And I guess the black goat's like hoping to become a witch one day. It's kind of like their version of
familiar.
Yeah, of a familiar.
That's so funny.
Like he has like this really weird voice. It's just like, hey, Guillermo.
Yeah, it sounds like the devil or something is talking through the goat.
It's like, black goat. Damn witches. Where are those witches?
And they're flying around overhead.
And at the end, like Nandor and Laszlo like jerk each other off.
Oh, that's right. Because Nadia wasn't in the mood or something. Yeah. So Laszlo looks at Nandor.
Well, they got so hot and bothered by the ceremony.
Oh, that's right. We got to finish each other off. Let's go. Come on. It's funny. Yeah, it's terrible.
It's just so casual, too.
Oh, my God. That's so terrible.
Sexuality is ambiguous with vampires.
Yeah, they don't care.
You got black hair and a bang. You're all into it.
Bang and bangs.
Bang and bangs. Man. All right.
Episode 10.
Episode 10, the season finale.
Nouveau Théâtre de Vampire.
I was going to ask
This
you how to say
season-
that.
It's
It went by
very.
so fast.
It did, dude. I watched episode 10 and it was the credits rolled and I was like, where's my next episode?
Yeah, I thought, this is only like the 4th episode.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize there was even 10 out.
They're
It was
only like
crazy.
30 minutes long.
Yeah, there's 30-minute long episodes. And it was like, it went by like
The
super
setup
quick.
of this one is very Interview with the Vampire.
Hit me with it.
So, as the vampires prepare to attend an exclusive event on the supernatural social calendar, they try to survive without Guillermo as their safety net. So, the housemates are invited to a elite event where they think that they are being honored for something, and it turns out they're being
Lured into a trap.
lured into like a trial.
It's like an assassination attempt, right?
Well, it's like
It's an execution.
they put them on trial for the murder of all of these vampires that Guillermo has killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to the first episode of the season, the Vampire Council has determined that, our 3 or 4 vampires, including Colin Robinson, are guilty of killing other vampires. And so, when the assassins didn't work, they came up with this elaborate scheme to lure them to the new theater of vampires, which is like this kind of like once every 100 years, like extravagant, show that travels around the world. And this is the first time it's going to be in the United States and the first time they've been invited. But the funny thing is like at the start of this episode, so basically Guillermo has quit. He's left the service, and once they realize that he's
No,
no
I
longer
thought he was
around-
just on his day off.
no, he quit.
Did he?
left.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so once they realize that he's no longer around, that they're like, they never realize how much he did. Like, there are dead bodies all over the place. Like everything's like a mess.
Yeah.
Nandor has to open his own coffin to get up in the morning. And so he keeps trying to track down Guillermo, but he's like, what is Guillermo's last name? And nobody knows.
Guillermo Piermo.
Yeah. And they keep trying to trick Colin Robinson into doing Guillermo's duties, and Colin Robinson's just like, no,
Not happening.
not happening. So then we see Guillermo has gone back home to his mom,
Oh.
and
Okay, now I remember that.
and he realizes that he left something behind at the house. So he goes back home and finds the house completely in disarray and no one's around. And he talks to Nadja's doll, and he's like, where'd everyone go? And she's like, oh, they got invited to this, theater thing. And he sees the invitation.
The invitation.
And he realizes it's a trap. And so he rushes out to the address on the theater to kind of save them. And so all the vampires are in the audience watching this thing. And then it's revealed that it was a trap, and they bring our little vampire crew up on stage, and they're gonna behead them all.
There's guillotines on the
Yeah.
stage, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a big swinging blade that goes across the whole stage. Gets them all at once.
And this is after they had actors portray them and show what the Vampire Council believes has been going on.
The revamp from or the recap from last season with the actors, which was emceed by the guy from the movie, one of the main vampires from the movie.
Yeah,
which
he's
was
also
kinda
the
cool.
producer of the show.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
The guy from Flight of the Conchords. I forget his name.
Jermaine?
Yeah, Jermaine. And Guillermo sees that his friends are about to get killed. So he springs into action, and he just starts murdering every vampire in the room. And so
exciting.
and so the season ends with his 4 vampire housemates seeing him slaughter all these vampires, and they're just now they know he's a vampire slayer. And so that it kind of ended on that where they're just like, Guillermo, what did you do?
It was a nice moment. The fight scene in this episode was pretty good though. I don't know what it is, man, but I love watching Guillermo just take it to a bunch of vampires. It's so much fun. And
You love seeing the regular guy kick ass.
Yes, I do. I love it so much. It's so much fun to watch.
Why am I on the vampire side?
You want the vampires to win?
Yeah.
Oh,
Why not?
them vampires.
Go vampires. Team vampire. Make me one. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I don't want to get any older.
No, I thought it was a really good episode. I can't say it was a good finale because I didn't realize it was a finale.
Yeah.
I was like watching it and I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, so let's see what the next episode is going to be about.
I was like, no.
And I was so disappointed to find out that it wasn't the
It was,
next
it was
episode.
kind of like the season 1 finale where it's kind of, it's not,
It's just a
it's a little
continuation.
It's a bit
underwhelming.
ambiguous.
It's a little underwhelming because it's not like a big finale. But it did, like, with the season 1 where we find out Guillermo is a descendant of Van Helsing, and now this one, now the vampires know that he's.
Well, he didn't kill all the vampires either.
No, but
a lot of them escaped.
But the main vampires, like his friends, like now know that he's a vampire slayer. So it sets up some interesting possibilities for season 3. But it also showed, because Nandor kind of knew that he'd already killed a vampire and covered it up for him. So now that they know what their life is like without him, they're probably going to be like, yes, he's a vampire killer, but he's really good at cleaning up.
He's a good vampire killer, though.
So maybe they'll make him a vampire and he can,
I don't think he's ever going to be a
No,
vampire.
I think that's
Can't.
Guillermo's stuck being. They're going to want him to stay the way he is so that he can keep killing all the other vampires. Because I can only imagine that this is going to go farther now. So whoever is in charge of this council is going to be like, they killed the council. We have to stop them. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
They're going to have to go on the run.
Yeah,
Go underground, live in the sewer.
something cool is going to happen.
God.
I hope they bring Wesley Snipes back.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes wasn't freaking Wesley in this season, or am I thinking of a different show? Yeah, from Star Trek.
No,
What's his name?
that's a different show.
That's a different show. Okay, I could have
You're
sworn.
thinking of Big Bang Theory.
My wife has been watching that show, and I think that's what it was.
Oh, Will Wheaton?
Yeah, Will
Yeah.
Wheaton.
Yeah, no, he wasn't in this.
Okay.
If he was on this show, I'd quit watching.
But so overall thoughts on season 2, Alex?
As somebody who really didn't care about the show in the first season, the second season, it did me in. I'm a super fan now. I'm in.
Great.
That makes me so happy.
I love it. It's so funny. Guillermo's my favorite character. It's so much fun to watch him
It's
just
great.
like wipe out a whole clan of vampires. And he does it in such like a nonchalant, like doesn't really know what he's doing, but he does it just naturally. It's really well done. I love it. I love the characters. This season was a ton of fun. There was only like 1 or 2 episodes, but we were kind of like meh. The rest of them were gold. And yeah, I can say that I'm really looking forward to season 3. Kadish, what about you?
Yeah, I love this season. It did everything a good follow-up should do. It kind of built off the first season, and it gave us more insight into the characters, and the jokes were really funny and kind of expanded the world. I mean, we got to see trolls, we got to see vampire hunters, we got to see families of vampires,
Necromancers.
like all types of stuff. And the jokes just constantly landed for me.
Yeah.
And Colin Robinson really just...
You know what we didn't get?
What we didn't get?
Werewolves.
Well, that was first season.
Yeah, we didn't get any of this.
There's no werewolves in season 2.
They'll
Season
be back.
3.
Season.
Smells like wet dog.
We got witches.
I want a werewolf show.
Really?
I want a spinoff. Yeah.
Well, a while back, Taika Waititi was talking about doing a sequel called Werewolves.
yeah. For the movie, right?
Yeah, the movie. But I think that morphed into this, so who knows?
Jude, what about you? What did you think about this season?
I love this season as much as I loved the first season, and I loved Colin Robinson in the first season, and now I loved like how much more his character has expanded in this season. I love that he got like his own episode and just his storylines, and I love it. I think like I loved the movie. I loved the first season, and like my love for this show just keeps growing.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Everything
Great. I loved it.
cool.
Yeah, had a lot of
Which
fun
she
with this.
said.
Yeah, what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very
You
rare.
always give them to me last, so you guys have already said everything.
Okay, I'll start doing you first.
No, you
then.
don't have to do me first. I'm just saying. I
He's
just like,
gonna
oh,
do
you
you
agree.
first.
Noted.
It's very rare that we
You guys-
find something Vader actually likes.
That is not true. I'm
guys
just
can
kind
just
of, I'm
finish
just
each other
curmudgeon. Ew.
Yeah.
Jizz all over the ceiling.
Lots of
Yeah, high
jizz.
ceilings in here. That's impressive.
Bottled it up.
Oh man. All right.
I keep
guys.
looking over at Batman over there.
with his bulge.
Jesus Christ.
I was on a Zoom call the other day, and I was down here, and where I was sitting, his package was like over my shoulder.
Why is there a guy's bulge right over your shoulder there?
Well, that's Batman.
That's funny.
Oh man. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast, all about what we do in the what we do in the shadows, season 2. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you would like to support this podcast, please go to saltynerdclub.com. That takes you straight to our Patreon page, and you can support us there, give us a little cheddar, or you can go to saltynerdvideo.com and check out our YouTube channel and subscribe and like there. We appreciate it. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time. Let's do the socials. Thank you. Where can we find you, Matthew Kadish?
At Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter.
Right on. And Jude, where can they find you?
Do Vader first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, please.
Vader.
At Matt Vader 74.
And what else are you doing?
On the socials, on Twitch as well. Really trying to grow that Twitch channel. So
yeah, go subscribe.
Come give it a follow.
What do you have? What's your goal? It was like 50.
I'm
right?
looking for affiliate right now. So I need 50 follows. I need 18 more.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. So there you go. 18 people need to go and subscribe to Matt Vader on Twitch so that he can get his affiliate. All right, Juju, where can they find you?
At I am Juju on the socials.
Right on. And you can find me at salty_nerd on Twitter or Instagram at salty_nerd_podcast. Whatever. Just search Salty Nerd Podcast. I'm also on TikTok too. All right, guys. Have a great night. See you later.
Stay dead and out of this world. Run fast, don't stand in the sun. There's too much work to be done. You're down, you're down, you're down, you're down and out of this world.